The legend who grew up surviving on discarded leftovers in Manila, who sold sweet bread and scrubbed floors simply to stay alive, climbed to the summit of boxing and captured world championships across 8 different weight classes. Manny Pacquiao collected countless millions in fortune, became the pride of an entire nation, entered politics, yet later watched lawsuits, crushing tax troubles, failed business ventures, painful election defeats, and hidden personal demons tear apart nearly everything he had spent his life building. Now, let us uncover why the greatest champion the Philippines ever produced eventually found himself battling fights that no pair of fists could ever conquer. There is a certain kind of hunger that shapes a person down to the deepest part of their soul. Not the type where you skip a celebration or keep riding an aging bicycle, but the kind where your own father kills the family dog because there is absolutely nothing left to feed everyone inside the house. Young Emmanuel Dapadran Pacquiao entered the world on December 17, 1978, in Cabá, close to Bukidnon on the island of Mindanao in the Philippines. He was the 4th child among 6 brothers and sisters. Their family's suffering became so unbearable that his father was eventually forced to slaughter their beloved dog just to provide food. The island of Mindanao, where Pacquiao spent his earliest childhood years, is the 2nd largest island in the Philippines and remains one of its poorest rural regions. While the capital city of Manila sparkled with wealth and opportunity, Mindanao then, and in many ways even today, felt like an entirely different world. Poverty in remote Mindanao was never simply about lacking money. It was about surviving another day. Families did not spend time wondering how to purchase toys. They woke every morning wondering whether there would be enough food to eat before nightfall. His parents separated while he was attending 6th grade after his father became involved with another woman. Suddenly his mother, Dionysia, carried the impossible responsibility of raising and feeding 6 children completely on her own. That separation was not only emotionally heartbreaking. Even worse, it created an economic disaster. A single mother supporting 6 children in one of the poorest parts of the Philippines had absolutely no government safety net to depend upon. There were no welfare payments and no unemployment benefits waiting to help. Survival became the only reality. Manny sold bread along busy street corners, performing work that children should never have been forced to do because childhood itself had become an unreachable luxury. He gathered discarded scrap materials and sold them for whatever money they could bring. He accepted every exhausting job that promised even a handful of coins. But when the moment arrived to choose between staying in school or helping keep his family alive, there was never any hesitation. He left school during the 6th grade because poverty had completely overwhelmed every other possibility. There was no rescue waiting. There was no alternative path ahead. There was only survival, and nothing beyond that. At the age of 12, after walking away from elementary education, he abandoned the classroom to chase a future in boxing and moved into the humble home of his uncle Sardo Mejia in the southern Philippine city of General Santos. Mejia, despite having no professional coaching background whatsoever, eventually became the future superstar's very first boxing trainer. The training conditions were unbelievably primitive. There were no modern gyms, no nutrition experts, no sports psychologists. There was only a makeshift ring, worn-out gloves, and an impossible dream that seemed completely unrealistic considering where they had begun. Remarkably, by the age of 15, Pacquiao had already earned recognition as one of the country's finest young amateur fighters and frequently competed in public park boxing matches throughout General Santos. Those park contests were brutal, lawless spectacles where spectators gambled heavily on every fight and the boxers earned only whatever generous fans decided to throw into the ring after each battle. It was inside those dusty public parks that Pacquiao developed the aggressive style that would later become legendary: relentless forward pressure, unbelievably fast hands, and an absolute refusal to surrender regardless of how much punishment his body absorbed. Still, the young fighter dreamed about achieving far greater success than General Santos could ever offer. So he secretly climbed aboard a ship bound for Manila. This was not a comfortable journey with purchased tickets or welcoming relatives waiting upon arrival. In truth, it was an extraordinary gamble taken by a 14-year-old boy convinced that Manila, the city where dreams either came alive or disappeared forever, represented his final opportunity for a better future. When he finally reached the capital, he slept on stacks of cardboard boxes. That detail was no exaggeration. It was completely real. The streets became his bedroom. Storefronts served as his only shelter. Every morning he sold sweetbread to office workers and pedestrians for just a few coins. Later he cleaned boxing gyms in exchange for opportunities to train, scrubbing floors and washing equipment simply to survive while building his strength and chasing the dream of becoming one of the world's elite fighters. At the age of 14, Pacquiao arrived in Manila and lived on the streets, worked as a construction laborer, and constantly faced the heartbreaking decision between buying food for himself or sending money back home to his mother. Every single peso he earned demanded a sacrifice. Either he could satisfy his own hunger that day or allow his mother to eat instead. On countless occasions, he chose his mother. Those were the days when he accepted going hungry himself. That was the harsh world from which Manny Pacquiao first emerged. That was the unshakable foundation upon which every achievement that followed was built. The following year, at only 16 years old, Pacquiao officially turned professional and made his debut as a junior flyweight during 1995. His first professional contest took place on January 22, 1995, when he faced Edmund Enting inside the ring. Pacquiao earned a decision victory, receiving a purse that by today's international standards would seem almost insignificant. Yet according to the life he had known, it represented more money than he had ever held at one single moment. The journey that followed was neither smooth nor guaranteed. 3 years later, in 1998, he captured the WBC Flyweight Championship, his first major world title, by defeating reigning champion Chache Sasacal. He had barely stepped beyond his teenage years and had already become a world champion. Without question, that victory became a massive celebration throughout the Philippines. Here stood a young man born into poverty, a school dropout who had once slept upon cardboard boxes, now raising a world championship belt above his head. The story felt unbelievable, yet life moved quickly, and greatness always carried dangerous consequences. The same burning determination that pushed Pacquiao toward the summit also made him fearless inside every fight. In 1996, while still early in his professional career, he faced Rustico Torrecampo. Torrecampo, who had recorded only 5 knockouts before meeting Manny, was never viewed as a serious threat, yet he landed several crushing punches and knocked Pacquiao unconscious just 30 seconds into the 3rd round. It became the very first defeat of his professional career. For a fighter who had sacrificed everything for boxing, who possessed no backup plan and no education to rely upon, such a devastating defeat meant far more than a simple loss inside the ring. It became a direct threat to his entire future. Grinding through relentless hardship became his only possible answer. Most fighters would have surrendered after such heartbreak. Manny refused. He lifted himself back up following that first defeat and answered by putting together an incredible 15-fight winning streak. During that unforgettable stretch, he also claimed the WBC Flyweight Championship by stopping reigning champion Chache Sasacal in spectacular fashion. That remarkable run restored both his confidence and his growing reputation. Trainers across the sport began paying close attention. Newspapers and television stations throughout Asia started celebrating him as the continent's newest boxing hero. Then another devastating setback arrived in the form of Medgon Singsurat. In 1999, Pacquiao defended his world title against Medgon Singsurat while still only 21 years old. Singsurat entered the contest carrying a flawless 18-0 professional record and was exactly the same age Manny had been when capturing his very first world championship. The contest was expected to confirm Pacquiao's dominance as boxing's unstoppable flyweight ruler. Instead, it proved exactly the opposite. Tragically for Pacquiao, he was once again knocked out during that disastrous 3rd round, losing his world title less than a year after winning it despite controlling the earlier rounds. The pattern became almost frightening. Pacquiao would explode from the opening bell, overwhelming opponents with relentless aggression and breathtaking speed, only for disaster to arrive during the 3rd round. A single punch would suddenly change everything within seconds. He would collapse to the canvas, and another championship would disappear. Most professional fighters would never recover after suffering 2 knockout defeats before reaching 22 years of age. Manny Pacquiao was never like most professional fighters. He rebuilt himself once again. He strengthened his body, matured as a boxer, and prepared for something the sport had never witnessed before. Here is where the truly unbelievable chapter of the Pacquiao story begins. Most champions spend their entire careers competing inside one weight division. Even moving up a single class is often considered an enormous gamble. Manny eventually conquered 8. He continued winning, and the entire boxing world could no longer ignore what it was witnessing. The victories became larger, the championship belts continued piling higher, the titles multiplied, the weight divisions kept changing, yet one thing remained exactly the same. Manny Pacquiao kept winning. Across an extraordinary 25-year professional career, Pacquiao defeated elite opponents to become boxing's only 8-division world champion, secured legitimate world championships across 5 different weight classes, and remains the only fighter ever to capture recognized world titles in 4 separate decades. By 2015, his 25 biggest pay-per-view events had generated well over $1 billion in revenue worldwide. Pause for just a moment and truly think about that staggering number. More than $1 billion. For a boy who once had to choose between buying himself food or sending money home to help his mother survive, that financial transformation almost seemed impossible to believe. Pacquiao defeated 22 world champions, including Juan Manuel Marquez twice, David Diaz, Oscar de la Hoya, Ricky Hatton, Miguel Cotto, Joshua Clottey, Antonio Margarito, Shane Mosley, Brandon Rios, Timothy Bradley twice, Chris Algieri, Jesse Vargas, Lucas Mathis, Adrian Broner, and later Keith Thurman. Several of those legendary names, including de la Hoya, Hatton, Cotto, and Mosley, were already considered all-time greats before sharing the ring with Manny Pacquiao. He did not merely defeat them. He completely overwhelmed them. Pacquiao made boxing history by becoming the first fighter ever to capture recognized world championships across 8 different weight divisions while collecting 12 major world titles during his remarkable journey. He was also selected as one of Time magazine's 100 most influential people in 2009 because of both his extraordinary achievements inside the ring and his incredible influence throughout the Philippines. That recognition from Time magazine reached far beyond boxing itself. It honored everything Pacquiao had come to represent. He became living proof that even the deepest poverty and the cruelest hunger could eventually be overcome. Whenever Manny Pacquiao entered the ring, he carried the hopes, pride, and dreams of an entire nation upon his shoulders. Crime throughout the Philippines. Everything paused. This was never a myth or an exaggerated story. Police departments reported genuine declines in crime rates whenever Pacquiao stepped into the ring. Streets emptied. Entire communities fell silent except for the sounds pouring from television sets. The whole country seemed to stop breathing. Even criminals delayed their plans because they wanted to watch Manny throw punches. He had become more than a champion. He had become a national hero. Yet as unimaginable wealth flooded into his life and worldwide fame reached extraordinary heights, Manny Pacquiao slowly began tearing himself apart. Years of victory transformed Pacquiao into a millionaire superstar, a relentless partygoer, a heavy gambler, and a notorious womanizer. The young man who had once struggled to choose between buying food for himself or sending money to help his mother now found himself drowning in unimaginable riches. The transformation did not happen gradually. It arrived suddenly, completely, and dangerously. There was chaos inside our home because fame got into my head, Pacquiao later admitted. I knew how to gamble. I knew how to drink. I chased many women. Those words described far more than harmless entertainment. They marked a complete change in the way he lived. Manny surrendered himself entirely to non-stop partying, excessive drinking, compulsive gambling, and endless affairs. The celebrations became legendary. The alcohol flowed constantly. The gambling evolved into an addiction, while women surrounded him everywhere he traveled. Cockfighting consumed nearly all of his spare time. In the Philippines, cockfighting, known locally as sabong, has existed for generations as a deeply rooted tradition, but Pacquiao pushed his involvement to extraordinary extremes. He owned thousands of fighting roosters. Massive farms were built solely to house them. He wagered enormous sums on individual matches, sometimes losing hundreds of thousands of dollars within only a single afternoon. The obsession was never really about money. He possessed more wealth than he could reasonably spend. Instead, it was about the excitement, the adrenaline, the same competitive fire that had once driven him inside the boxing ring. Casino nights became another dangerous addiction. Wealth allowed Pacquiao to travel regularly to Macau, Las Vegas, and even Manila's finest casinos, where millions of dollars disappeared across gambling tables. Friends and longtime associates later described watching him lose $100,000, $200,000, or sometimes even more during a single evening. When someone earns tens of millions from one prize fight, those losses may initially appear insignificant, yet they continued piling higher. Gambling extended far beyond casinos and boxing events. Pacquiao wagered on basketball games, card matches, and practically every competition that offered action. Women outside his marriage also demanded his attention. His infidelities were not always hidden behind closed doors. In several situations, they unfolded almost openly. Reports claimed Pacquiao fathered a child outside his marriage and, according to people close to him, became romantically involved with a well-known actress more than a decade earlier. That celebrity remained highly respected throughout the Philippines. Their relationship became an open secret among members of Pacquiao's closest circle. His mistakes were never hidden from his devoted wife, Jean Key, yet the affair with the actress nearly destroyed their marriage forever. These were not simply tabloid rumors invented by gossip writers. Several individuals who worked closely beside Pacquiao confirmed witnessing the relationship themselves. During that painful period, factions even developed inside Manny's own training camp, with some people supporting his wife while others sympathized with the actress. Because she occasionally appeared during training sessions, the boxing gym, a place where Pacquiao should have remained completely focused upon preparing for fights, slowly transformed into something resembling a television drama. Coaches, sparring partners, managers, and staff members quietly divided into opposing sides. Some remained loyal to Gene Key, the faithful wife who had stood beside Manny long before fortune ever entered his life. Others admired the actress, believing she offered comfort and companionship while Gene Key remained occupied raising their growing family. In a 2011 interview with the Philippine star, Gene Key revealed that Pacquiao had considered leaving his family to begin a new life with the actress. By then, husband and wife had gone 4 months without speaking to one another. 4 painful months of silence inside the same household. 4 months during which their children watched their parents share the same home while refusing to exchange even simple words. Gene Key later described the heartbreak